guys, welcome back to Cozy Corner. I've got my lizard friend here with me today, and we'll get started. So let's do a quick recap. The last thing we learned that was Uncle Barney had his diary and some letters that he sent to scientists stolen, and Hannah got scared because a rattlesnake was on the ground slithering near her, and she dropped the lemonade and the pitcher. So let's find out, and we'll pick up from chapter 5. Here we go. The kids followed Alice back to the house. They stopped to admire Hannah's motor scooter. It was painted the same blue as a robin's egg. There were 2 side compartments under the rear seat. One was open and held books. The cover of one of the books showed a woman who was an old-timey movie star. The word film was printed in silvery letters beneath the actress's face. The other compartment was closed. Here is a picture. Here we go. Hannah had left the scooter's key in the ignition. The key was on a thin chain holding more keys. "I'm getting a scooter like this someday," Josh said. "Here's where I'll keep my snacks." He tapped the closed compartment. "Get one that holds 3 people," Ruth Rose said. "You can drive Dink and me around town." She bent down and plucked a limp flower that was stuck in the front wheel spokes. "This flower matches my outfit." They went inside, where the kitchen smelled like warm cookies. Wallace and Hannah were sitting at the table drinking lemonade. Ruth Rose put her flower in a small glass of water and set it on the table. "Everyone sit," Alice said. She arranged some cookies on a plate and brought it to the table. "Help yourselves." "Hannah was telling me about the rattlesnake," Wallace said. "I would have screamed and dropped the lemonade, too." "Not me," Josh said, reaching for a cookie. "I love snakes." "And snakes love you," Dink nodded. Everyone laughed and began eating Alice's cookies. Hannah stood up and put her glass in the sink. "I'm going to do study with Kenny," she said. She took 2 cookies off the plate and left by the back door. "I think Hannah and Kenny are sweethearts," Alice said. "They spend a lot of time together." "Do they go to the same school?" Wallace asked. Alice nodded. "They both go to the community college, but I let them study here because it's a lot quieter than their dorm," she said. "Hannah wants to be a movie producer." "Awesome," said Josh. "Maybe she can make a movie of one of your books, Wallace." "Lovely idea," Wallace said. "Why don't you kids do some exploring before supper?" Uncle Barney found some arrowheads in the dirt behind the barn. "Right, Auntie?" "He sure did," Alice said. "There are shovels in the tool shed behind the cafe, but stay away from the pond. You might want to put on some mosquito repellent," Wallace suggested. "I have some in my backpack," Ruth Rose said. Alice stood up. "Goodness, it's almost 5 o'clock. She covered the plate of cookies with aluminum foil and handed it to Ruth Rose. "Give these to Howie, would you?" she asked. "His kids will be upset if he doesn't bring some of my cookies home." Dink took his glass to the sink and placed it next to Hannah's, glancing at the magnets on the fridge door. The alligator's mouth was open. The note was gone. But he remembered the lost thought that had been bothering him. He opened the drawer in front of him, picked up what was inside, and slipped it into his back pocket. The kids trooped out the back door. "Remind me to tell you something later," Dink whispered to Josh and Ruth Rose. In the yard, Bear appeared from around the corner of the house, followed by Howie. Bear ran up to Ruth Rose to sniff what she was carrying. "Are those cookies by any chance?" Howie asked. Ruth Rose handed over the plate. "Auntie Alice said they're for your kids," she said. "Can we meet them?" "Here is Dink." There we go. Pulling something out of the drawer and putting it in his back pocket. "Sure," he said. "I'll bring Maddie and Seth over tomorrow. They have a school project to do, and I said I'd help them." "A space project?" Dink asked. Howie shook his head. "Nope. It's about animals," he said, walking toward his van. "What kind of animals?" Josh asked. "Think paws and claws," Howie said. Dink, Josh, and Ruth Rose watched him drive away. "Great," Josh muttered. "We just missed running into a mountain lion. There are bats in the trees, scorpions in the beds, and alligators in the pond. Snakes are hiding under picnic tables." Dink laughed. "But Ruth Rose and I are here to protect you," he said. "Guys, if we're going to look for arrowheads, we need to do it before it gets dark," Ruth Rose said. "Let's get my mosquito spray." The kids went inside the bunkhouse and sprayed pine shine over their clothes. It smelled like a Christmas tree. Dink tossed super science onto his bunk, and then they found shovels and a rake in the tool shed. What did you want to tell us, Josh asked Dink. When we first got here, there was a note on the fridge, Dink told his friends. It said something about buying paper towels and was signed H. I figure Hannah or Howie wrote it to Auntie A. Josh stared at Dink. That's it? He asked. Paper towels? No, Dink said. I'm pretty sure the handwriting was the same as on the postcard Auntie Alice got today. The one from somebody wanting to buy her house? Ruth Rose asked. Why would the handwriting be the same? That's what I want to know, Dink said. He showed them the postcard he'd snitched from the kitchen. Could it be the same? Josh said. The writer wants to buy the house. The note writer is either Hannah or Howie, asking Auntie A to buy paper towels. I could be wrong, Dink said, and the note is gone, so I can't compare them. Anyway, let's look for arrowheads. They walked behind the barn. The algae covering the pond looked thick and slimy. Dink remembered the magazine cover. Was algae the green goo that was going to save the planet? And there's a picture of the pond where they were at. I wonder if there really is an alligator in the pond, Josh said. Don't get too close, guys. Lots of animals come here to drink, Ruth Rose said. Very funny, Bunny, Josh said. Josh, I wasn't trying to be funny, Ruth Rose said. Come, look at these tracks. Josh and Dink walked over to where she was standing. There were prints in the dark, wet ground. Most were tiny, like the ones birds or small animals would make, but Dink noticed wide prints with 4 long toes. Chapter 6. The kids looked down at the tracks. These could be from a bear, Ruth Rose said. Black bears eat fish, and fish live in ponds like this. I'm going home, Josh said. It's a long walk to Connecticut, Dink said. Ruth Rose stepped a few feet away. Guys, check this out, she said. Dink and Josh joined her. What? Dink asked. More tracks, Ruth Rose said, only these are human. A couple of feet from the water were several shoe prints. I wonder who was walking here, Dink said. Maybe Kenny and Hannah, Ruth Rose suggested. Or the burglars, Josh said. Dink stared at the footprints. Why would anybody hang out here, where it's muddy and smelly? He swatted at the mosquitoes. And buggy. There he is, swatting at the mosquitoes. Maybe they got too close and the alligator got them, Josh said. Well, we came out to look for arrowheads, Ruth Rose said. She walked away with the rake and began scraping the dirt next to the barn. Dink and Josh started digging holes with their shovels. 10 minutes later, they had a small pile of treasures they dug up. 3 tin cans, the broken handle of a coffee mug, a green bottle, a horseshoe, and 7 rusty nails. Not one arrowhead, Dink said. Maybe Wallace's uncle found them all, Josh said. Anyway, it's getting dark. We can try again tomorrow. They put the shovels and rake inside the tool shed and closed the door. I need to wash my hands, Ruth Rose said. The kids headed around the corner of the barn, toward the bunkhouse. Kenny and Hannah were sitting at the picnic table with books in front of them, but they weren't reading. Hey, Kenny said when he noticed the kids. What's going on? The kids walked over to say hi. We were looking for arrowheads, Dink said. Kenny sprayed himself and Hannah with a can of bug off. The smell was strong and made Dink's eyes water. Find any? Kenny asked. Just a lot of junk, Josh said. Bummer, Kenny said. He was tapping his fingers on the cover of his book. Botany was printed on the front. What are you reading about? Josh asked, pointing to the title. The study of plants, Kenny said. Trust me, there is a zillion kinds of plants in Florida. What about algae? We saw a lot of algae on the pond, Dink said. Man, I wouldn't go near any of the ponds, Kenny said. I saw rattlesnakes near them last week, and I'm pretty sure there's gators too. How many ponds are there? Dink asked. We only saw one. There are more back in the jungle, Kenny said, but I wouldn't go out there either, he grinned, unless you like snakes and spiders. Did you really see a mountain lion here this morning? Josh asked. Yep, Kenny said. Auntie Alice said you took a picture, Ruth Rose said. Could we see it? Kenny opened his phone and tapped a few buttons. Here it is, he said. He held his phone so all 3 kids could see the screen. There's the phone picture. In the photo, a tan-colored mountain lion lay stretched out in the middle of the driveway. Its long tail was curled near its back legs. Behind the animal, Dink could see the barn. Dink looked closer. "Where are the cars?" he asked. "They're not in the driveway." "Cars? Oh, Howie was going to wash the cars, so I guess he moved them out front near the hose," Kenny said. Just then they all heard someone calling. "It's Wallace!" Ruth Rose said. "I hope it's supper time," Josh said. The kids ran to the house and into the kitchen. The table was set with 5 places. Platters of food were lined up on the counter. Bear was under the table, slapping his tail against the floor. "Grab a plate and help yourself," Alice said, "after you wash your hands." Alice and Wallace served fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and green beans. For dessert, there were 3 flavors of ice cream. After the table was cleared, they played Scrabble. Then the kids headed back to the barn. 2 hours later, the kids were in their bunks. They had left the bunkhouse windows up to let breezes come through the screens. Crickets and frogs made chirping and cheeping noises. "My stomach hurts," Josh said from his bottom bunk. He was wearing Spider-Man pajamas. "You ate seconds of everything," Ruth Rose said, "like a hungry badger." "Guys, did you notice anything weird about Kenny's picture of the mountain lion?" Dink asked. He was lying on his upper bunk gazing out the window. "Weird how?" Josh asked. "Well, for one thing, this morning Kenny told us the lion was near the station wagon in the driveway," Dink said. "But I didn't see any cars in that picture he took." "He told us Howie probably moved the cars to wash them," Ruth Rose said from her bunk. "Maybe the lion got there after he moved them." Dink sat up. "Okay, but he said that the hose was out front," he said. "The hose isn't there, though. It's behind the bunkhouse." No answers came. "Another thing," Dink continued. "The picture shows the barn in the background, but in the picture the barn door isn't painted with that cool space shuttle. Auntie A told us Howie painted it last week. So if Kenny took the picture of this morning, how come the barn door wasn't painted?" "Maybe Auntie Alice is confused about when the lion was in the driveway," Ruth Rose said. "Or Kenny got it mixed up." Dink shook his head. "They both said the lion was there this morning," he said. "Why would Kenny lie about that?" Josh asked. Dink thought, "Maybe he was lying to Auntie A," he said. "But why?" Josh asked. "Remember, I thought the note on the fridge signed by H had the same handwriting as that postcard Auntie A got today?" Dink asked, "If I'm right, it might mean that either Hannah or Howie wrote the note and the postcards. And then, if Kenny is lying about the mountain lion, it could mean the 3 of them are trying to get Auntie A to sell her house." "But the postcards were signed M.K., Ruth Rose said. "Who's that?" "I know," Dink muttered. I don't know. It does seem weird that it's all happening at the same time," Josh said. "Postcards and phone calls trying to buy her house, rattlesnakes and mountain lions in her yard, and a burglar taking her husband's stuff. It feels like someone is trying to scare Auntie A," Ruth Rose said. "Well, they're scaring me," Josh said. "Whatever's going on," Dink said, "my Dink brain is telling me someone's really anxious to get this place away from Auntie A." "But Howie and Kenny and Hannah are Auntie's friends," Ruth Rose said. "I know they are," Dink said, getting under his covers, "and they all know where she keeps her key to the barn." Just as Dink was dropping off to sleep, he felt Josh kick the bottom of his bunk. "Dink," Josh whispered, "are you awake?" "I am now," Dink said. "What do you want?" "My Josh brain just asked me a question." Dink grinned. "What did your Josh brain ask you?" He said, "And why does it have to ask right now?" "It asked me why the burglar didn't steal anything valuable from the barn," Josh said, "like those moon rocks and those signed pictures of the astronauts. They must be worth something, right?" Dink thought about that. Josh was right. All the burglars took was a diary and some old letters. "See you in the morning," he told Josh. I wonder what's going on. Come back tomorrow and we'll see what happens in Chapter 7. Have a good day.